Okay, the Brattleboro Selectboard Meeting for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 shall commence. John, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, Liz, it has.
Thank you. My only remark this evening is that Chair Quip is under the weather. John, do you have comments?
Yes, I do. I have a few things, a few announcements. Effective Monday, February 3rd, the town clerk's office will be closed to the public for the lunch hours from 12 to 1 p.m., and this is for efficiencies during the early voting period. Petitions for town office, town meeting member, and school board are now all submitted, and candidates have until 5 p.m. on Wednesday, January 29th to withdraw their names from the ballot if they wish. After that, everything's moving forward. Voters may now request absentee ballots for the March 4th election. They can do that through their My Voter page or by contacting the town clerk's office. Ballots will begin getting mailed on or about February 12th, so look for them after that. In-person early voting will likely begin at some point during the week of February 18th, but we don't know exactly when yet. Once the voting tabulators have been tested, an announcement will go out and to when that is available. Dog owners should have received renewal notices in the mail. If you have a dog and you did not get a renewal notice, check in with the town clerk. If you are renewing online, please be sure to follow the instructions that were mailed out to you and claim your dog record for renewal rather than having to create a new record in the system. And then finally, with expected snow tonight, I'm hearing 2 to 4 inches. And this weekend, a reminder that the overnight parking ban is in effect. Overnight parking is forbidden on all streets in the town of Brattleboro. Vehicles parked for longer than 1 hour between 11 p.m. at night and 7 a.m. in the morning may be ticketed and towed at the owner's expense. During snowstorms, vehicles can park undercover in the transportation center. And if that's full, there's overflow parking in the Preston lot. Vehicles must be out of the Preston lot by 8 a.m. because there'll be clearing snow in there, but we'll see how much snow we get. That's all I have.
Great,
tonight.
thank you. Are there any select board members who have remarks they'd like to make?
I will.
Yes, Franz.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I've been getting a lot of emails in the last 24 hours or so about the president's decision to withhold funding for a variety of loans and grants that affect all kinds of services in all areas of our country. I had a brief interaction with the town manager today just to ask if there was anything that would be directly affecting the town at this time, and he says they're looking into it, but he doesn't think there will be direct effects like that in the short term. However, I think there are a lot of other matters in town, other agencies in town that may be more directly affected, and I'm hoping that we'll have some kind of flow of information as we hear about what those effects may be and consider what responses we have to make in order to take care of people here in our community. So I just want people to be aware of that, and if they have information about it, certainly get in touch with me or other town officials to let us know what's going on. Thank you.
Great. Richard.
In relation to what Franz just said, when I was coming in here on the radio, I heard that federal judge has held that up at least until Monday.
Great.
Well, that's indeed good news, and I would just, if I were in the president's shoes, say, oh yeah, him and what army? But that's another matter.
Okay. So let's move to public participation. I see there's one person, we have a 50% participation rate in the room as it stands now, and Kate, if you'd like to come and introduce yourself.
I'll make it really quick. Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. Normally, I can leave a meeting, go home and live my life. But last week, there were some comments that are still bugging me. So I just want to address them. And it was in relation to the budget. And there was an implication that if you don't support the select board budget, then you don't support the police, community safety, or town employees. And I know in my case that is not true. As you know, I don't like the budget, but I do support the police, community safety, and town employees. And I'm just saying this because I don't want us to be divided and divisive, and I think implying that is divisive. And whatever the budget comes out, whether it's the select board budget, whether it's one from town meeting, we're all going to have to work together to work on the challenges that are happening in the community. So I'm just hoping that whether it comes from this room or people outside, that you can't make the assumption that because we don't approve the select board budget means we don't support all this other stuff. So I just wanted to bring that up because we're all on the same side, even though we might disagree. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Ken?
Hello, Ken Fay, District 8. Franz brought up a question. I'd been thinking about this for a while, but when Franz said he's been getting phone calls or emails, in other places in government, local government, any correspondence that the select board or city council got was included in packages so that, everybody can see, everybody's on the same page in a way. Because if Franz didn't mention that people had contacted him, they would have just contacted him. He wouldn't have told the board, he wouldn't have told the public. So I'm curious as to if there's any thought on having, what information that the select board gets from citizens to be put into the package for the meetings, so that everybody's on the same page, everybody can see what everybody, all the information. That's it. Thanks.
We'll review that in light of the open meeting law and get back to you, Ken. Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to speak up? Patrick? Great. All right. Let's move on to the consent agenda. The first, well, let's ask John if he would like to describe the 4 items on the consent agenda.
I can, if you want.
I would.
Okay. So if you approve this agenda, you'll be appointing Hillary Francis as town clerk, Fisher and Fisher, Bob Fisher as town attorney, and Assistant Treasurer Leslie Smith from the Finance Department as interim town treasurer, all for ratification at representative town meeting. You'll be approving a utility agreement with the state to adjust water and sewer structures when they are repaving state roads next year, consistent with VTrans agreements and paid for in the amount of $41,475 from the utilities budget. You'll be designating Human Resources Director Sally Cruz Nix as the town's liaison to the State Ethics Commission, which is a requirement of Act 171 passed last legislative session, and you'll be ratifying a parade permit for the Asian Cultural Center of Vermont's annual parade to celebrate the Chinese New Year on Sunday, February 2nd, beginning at 2:15 p.m., going up and back Main Street using sidewalks and crosswalks.
Great. Thank you, John. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I'll motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Great. Select Board, all in favor of approving the consent agenda? Oh, first of all, does anyone want to pull an item from the consent agenda? Hearing nothing. Okay. All Select Board members in favor of the consent agenda, please raise your hand and say yes.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4-0. And now we move on to old business, which is the warning of the annual town meeting and representative town meeting. So, John, would you like to present that?
Sure. Basically, this is just bringing back what you discussed at your last meeting on the 21st. We've revised both the warning for the annual town meeting, which is the ballot, and also the warning for representative town meeting, which is on March 22nd. I guess the main changes, just to draw your attention to, on the annual town meeting, the ballot item are, let's see, we've incorporated Article 3 with the wording changes that you approved by motion at your last meeting. We included Article 4 and 5 as they were written without change, but as you also instructed us to include in this warning. And then we have Article 6, we included in the language that you were discussing late on that meeting, which I felt like there was a little bit of, not totally sure, but we got to get this done. So we included that as one version, but also, and I believe there's some copies up here, we have a slightly different Article 6, and this is the one that relates to human services funding. Mm-hmm. And what we consulted with the town attorney and the town clerk, and pursuant to some of your discussion around, like, is this really surveying well or not? We came up with a different idea that's a little more open, it's a little more exact in, like, where somebody would be able to give the town meeting feedback. And happy to go through that in more detail, but it's basically an option if you want to consider it, or you can move forward with the one that you talked about last week. Then, okay, do you want to stop on that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
do. Does anyone on the select board have any comments about the annual town meeting March 4th articles from 1 through 5? Are we all set on those as presented?
I'm good with those.
Okay, so let's talk about Article 6. As a social scientist, I can see that polling the public, this is gives more information to representative town meeting than the original. I would like my colleagues' thoughts. Anyone have any thoughts?
Oh, I got some thoughts, lady. But
I've got some thoughts and my fingers in the air.
Well, there you go. Franz, let's hear from you first.
I like it. I like the new Article 6, and I agree it does give more information. But another thing I like about it is that the categories are all mutually exclusive, so that we can reconstruct the information in the original just by adding together the categories. And in fact, we can look at different breakdowns of where a majority seems to lie by combining categories. So I think it does a good job of giving us information about what the people of the town actually think.
I agree. I think it's very instructive.
so that would,
Your thoughts have
my
been
thoughts
captured?
more on the mechanism of how this gets rolled out. So I assume I step into the voters' booth and I say, I think we need to go back to less than 1%. Let's just, for example. So I check that box, and then Franz goes in and he checks, I want it right where it is, and Richard goes in and he checks another box. So, and let's just say that falls along the lines. So do we take all of that, or do we just kind of, but if majority of the voters go in and just say, I want this thing zeroed out, is that what we fall to? That's, I guess, my question. So I'm a little, I like the sort of polling option that this brings us, to kind of give us a little bit more direction. So I like that part.
Well, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than the others, and I think that we'll have answers in each category to bring with us to town meeting, but John, you might want to say more.
Yeah, and just remembering that this is just an advisory to town meeting, so if.
Right,
they-
thank you, I keep forgetting that
Yep,
piece. Right.
so, nothing binding here, it just is feedback.
They can basically say a majority of the people want it kind of here, but, you know, a close second is here. Yeah, I like
yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah, Richard?
So this is guidance for the March, the
22nd.
representative town meeting.
Yes.
And that's sort of to guide them. Now, I have one question. Why are we putting in here, in future budgets? Is that really something we should be putting in here for future budgets?
I think we're getting the will of the people kind of more than just this one year. We don't want to do this every year. So you're getting a sense of what the public wants in general on this policy issue for now and in the future.
So if nobody brings up an issue for the next fiscal year, this will stay in place?
Well,
Whatever
again,
is decided,
It's only advisory.
right.
And so we'll have this data point in time for this year. And by adding the future years, we'll understand the will of the people, not just for this instance, but in general.
So this exact Article 6, if nobody changes anything, every year it'll appear on the warning?
No,
Now, see,
no.
that's what I'm not understanding.
No, it's just the information that is gathered can be used as a reference to understand the will of the people. John, did you want to say more?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that there are 2 articles on your draft warning for a representative town meeting. One has to do with FY '26 budget and the human services funding, and the other has to do with a future budget, FY '27. So it was just trying to use simple language to get at the broader advisory nature of this that could be used, or town meeting can look at this and say, well, we're gonna do what we think is right, but this is just feedback for them.
And then next year, they'll have to come up with something else to, if they desire.
If it was needed, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Whether you like it or not.
So let's hear from the public. We have Heidi.
Can I just suggest that the audience at home probably doesn't know what that new Article 6 is?
Oh, very good.
Do you have that, can you pull that up on the screen?
Pardon?
Do you have that copy of that you could pull up on the screen for people?
Or shall I read it?
Well, yeah, it looks like I do.
Oh, look at that.
That was fast.
Never mind. Patrick to the rescue.
Well, let's see. You wanted to hear from Heidi?
Yes.
Why don't we hear from Heidi?
Hi, District 7. I was just going to ask that same thing, is that we at home don't know what it is being discussed exactly. Oh, there it is. It just showed up. Okay, thank you. That was my hope. To give us a second to read it too, please. Thank you.
Take a deep breath. No, we'll
No, no, just give a minute to read it.
minute to read it. And while that's going on, I'll also ask if there's members in this room who would like to comment.
Tom Franks, District 9. I did have a question.
You need to come to the microphone, or Helena will be upset.
Tom Franks, District 9. I just wandered in, so I'm curious. I heard reference to the FY '27 budget, and I didn't see that in the Article 6. Carefully enough. Where is
It just says, and in future budgets.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's the reference, because I heard.
vague, but definitely there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so, I've given everybody time to read this. And is there anyone else who would like to speak to it? We could give Jackie a chance to speak to it. No, we're discussing what's in your hand, the piece of paper in your hand. Franz, can I have some more?
Yes.
Yeah. So why don't we discuss, thank you, Franz, the annual representative town meeting warning, these articles, and then we'll come back for a vote on the election day articles. John, did you want to describe
Sure.
any changes?
And this one is virtually the same as what you saw last week, with one change, I believe, which is that what is now Article 9 has been rearranged to come in a better order, but it also now has the numbers in it for the two items that are driving the potential use of unassigned fund balance that will be requested of town meeting. And that, I think, was the only change. Is that right, Patrick? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. So, select board members, do you have any items, articles that you'd like to discuss? Or are you content with the way it's presented? All right, hearing none, and let's ask the room. Is there anyone that has any commentary to make on the articles presented for representative town meeting on March 22nd? I think Kate's hand is up.
Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. I want to make a comment and ask a question about Article 9, which used to be Article 12. The first comment is in the memo, it gives two options of what can happen with that. One, it can come out of the unassigned fund balance, or two, it could be put into the FY26 budget. There are actually at least two more options, which is we don't take it out of the unassigned fund balance and we don't put it in the FY26 budget, which means we'll deficit spend, or it does go in the FY26 budget and the FY26 budget fails. So I just want to make sure everybody knows there are not just two options of what can happen with that. Not that I'm advocating for any of that, I'm just saying they're more than the two options in the memo. But my question is, the second option that's listed is including it in the FY26 budget, which means it would not be available to be spent until July 1st. So my question is, you folks voted to do this, at least the police stuff, in September. And if it doesn't come out of the unassigned fund balance and we can't have the money until July 1st, if it gets put in the FY26 budget, how are you paying for all of this stuff, like, right now, is my question.
The town manager has been interrogated.
I can take a try at this and correct me if I'm wrong.
Straight to Bob.
Bob Fisher? Okay.
Yeah.
We have the town attorney on.
Oh, great.
On the Zoom, and he can maybe address the options here.
Bob Fisher, please join us. Hi, Bob.
There we go. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, great. If, as far as paying for it, you would be paying for it just like you've been paying for it up till now. So you're using available funds. The question becomes, if you end up the year with a with a deficit in your general fund, how are you curing that? So to cover it, what we're recommending is to take it from the unassigned fund balance. If that article fails, then you don't take it from the fund balance. You might end up with, at that point, a deficit in the general fund, but you may not have an overall deficit for the entire town. The law provides that if you are in a deficit situation, and that's defined specifically as all of your liabilities exceed your assets and funds, then you do one of three things. You can add to your tax rate in multiples of 5%. That tends to raise too much. You can seek a bond and borrow to retire a deficit. And the third one, well, you always vote, well, we don't always vote, but it's on the article to borrow in anticipation of taxes. So that would be your option also moving forward. So I just don't see that you're going to end up with what is a true deficit as defined. So Kate may be correct that if it fails, you would be in a deficit spending for the general fund, but you would continue to pay for these things just like you have now.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Everybody got that? Good. Are there any more comments regarding the warning and the articles for representative town meeting?
I have a question about what Bob just said.
Okay,
I'm a little confused.
that's great, because he's here with us on the
Yes,
screen, so ask away.
You said if the article fails, then we find the money from somewhere else. So a failure of the article only means that town meeting doesn't want to pay for it, but the actual project would go forward.
It's being paid for now and will continue. It's just a matter of whether it gets assigned to this unassigned fund balance. So it's just a matter. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
If I may, it's a matter of whether you're going to end the year with a balanced budget. If it passes, you've covered it with regard to it coming out of the unassigned fund balance. If it doesn't pass, then you've ended up at your fiscal year in a deficit in your general fund. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the town doesn't have any money, because your fund balance far exceeds your liabilities in town. So it just doesn't, I guess, look as good on ending the year in the red versus at a net zero.
So it's really an accounting function, Bob. Couldn't it be described that way?
Yes, yes.
All right, then. Are we ready then for a vote? Does someone want to, oh, well, we actually should go back to the annual town meeting March 4th articles, specifically Article 6. If there's anyone else who would like to speak to that now that it's been on the screen. Jackie. Go ahead.
Beginning. Sorry about that. I'm Jackie Reese. I am in District 9. It's District 9, right? Not 3 anymore. Anyway, whichever one, that's where I am. I live downtown is basically what I'm trying to say. I live downtown. I'm very affected by downtown. I am on I'm an RTM member, and I'm also on the Finance Committee. So going through all of this budget is confusing to those of us who've only done it on a very minor scale. However, there are some things that I know. And I know that at this point, our taxes have gone up, and nobody likes that. However, I don't think that we need to interrupt the positive gains that the Downtown Safety Committee, that the Downtown Safety Action and Plan has made so far. And I think that some people are calling for that. I got this big long thing here that I won't read to everybody. But as pertains to Article 6 and this vote that you want to put on there, I'm very much for it because, one, as it is now, we don't have any say of what goes into the budget for human services. For the people that we're trying to help downtown, it's just, we have no say in it at all. So even this much is, I think, really important for us to have. And I'd like it further to have more input. But we need a vibrant downtown. We need a vibrant downtown, and part of the funding that could be put towards making a vibrant downtown, in my opinion, could come from the human services. Instead of giving it to the, I don't know how many nonprofits we have in town, but we give away, close to $500,000, which is not the same as other towns. I mean, South Burlington, 13,000, 15,000. I mean, that's quite a bit different from almost $500,000. Now that money can go towards our staff. I mean, that's what, 6, 7, 8 jobs on our staff, our people, our townspeople. The other part of it is that if we don't have extra money, why are we giving it to charity? I mean, I can't do that. I don't know anybody who can do that in the budget. Anybody who says, well, we're having a hard time balancing our budget, we're having a hard time paying our bills, but, let's give away $500. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. That's just, I would vote for a 0 at this point. And I just think that this is a really bad time, just to give my further opinion on that. I think this is a really bad time for us to continue giving the way that we have been giving or to increase it. And that's it.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay. Anyone else want to discuss Article 6? Tom?
Tom Franks, District 9. I want to thank you for the work you've done on Article number 6. I didn't expect that you would get to multiple choice, and was hesitating even. I did not offer it as an option, but it's a great option. It really gives the people, I think, a chance to tell you what the people want. Problem becomes analysis, but we'll deal with that later. Thank you.
It's been my experience that the Brattleboro public is not shy about telling us what they want. So, would someone, if we're all set on Article 6 and the March 4th articles? Yes, John?
So we had a suggested motion in here
great.
for you, but just to clarify for everybody, you might want to address that change on the Article 6 and incorporate that into whatever motion somebody might want to make.
Great. So somebody, did you hear that?
So where is this language for the suggested motion?
It's in right under staff recommendation.
So it is. Cleverly hidden right there. So we would want a motion that basically says that, but also says something about Article 6 language as amended here.
Newly
So
presented, yeah.
I'm just trying to run through it procedurally. We could either make the motion as written and then move to amend it, or we could just have a new motion that incorporates the language on this separate sheet of paper. I wonder if the chair has a preference as to how we proceed.
I would suggest that we make the motion as in the staff recommendation, but instead of saying as presented, we could say as presented and modified by new language for Article 6.
Well, but except that we need to include that new language somewhere, I would think.
Do you think that the new language needs to be read into the motion?
Let's ask
I would
Bob Fisher.
ask the town attorney.
Let's ask the town attorney.
Bob Fisher,
Bob,
come
please
on
come
down.
back.
Did he go away? Did he go away?
Surprised. But you never know how. There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Bob?
Okay. With regard to that, I think if you just make your motion to adopt the warning with the amendment of Article 6 as set forth, and then simply read Article 6. That way, for purposes, and that'll get retyped for signature tomorrow, but at least that way, what you have voted upon is the formal warning for representative town meeting and the March 4th ballot meeting.
Great, thank you. You
I
want
can
to?
do that.
Great.
I move the following action: to approve the warning of the 2025 annual town meeting and representative town meeting as presented, with the following modification to Article 6. Article 6 shall read, shall the voters of the town of Brattleboro advise representative town meeting to authorize human services funding in fiscal year 2026, parentheses FY26, the upcoming budget year, and in future budgets at, parentheses, vote for not more than one. First bullet point, $0 in parentheses. Second bullet point, less than 1% of the previous year's budget, parentheses, example, less than $230,638 in FY26. Third bullet point, between 1% and 2% of the previous year's budget, parentheses, example, between $230,638 and $461,276 in FY26. Fourth bullet point, equal to 2% of the previous year's budget, parentheses, example, $461,276 in FY26. Fifth bullet point, more than 2% of the previous year's budget, parentheses, example, more than $461,276 in FY26.
Thank you, Franz.
Nailed it.
One little slip
It's
up.
okay. Nobody noticed.
Okay. Amanda?
Amanda Ellis Thurber, Brattleboro. I want to say thank you for the work on this and also for bringing it to the townwide vote, articulating the article so clearly. Our human service agencies in our community do a lot of very important work. There are other mechanisms potentially to explore for our town to help fund them that don't depend on annual tax raises. For example, an endowment for human services. There are other ways to explore. Our current budget issues, obviously, they're things we might want, ways we want to help, but we can't at this time. So I appreciate your work on this, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Anybody on Zoom? There, Patrick? Great. I'll just repeat it just to beat the dead horse. Okay, but Select Board, I'm going to ask you to vote on the following motion: to approve the warning for 2025 annual town meeting and representative town meeting as presented, and with the modification to Article 6 that reads, shall the voters of the town of Brattleboro advise representative town meeting to authorize human service funding in fiscal year 2026, FY '26, the upcoming budget year, and in future budgets at, please vote for not more than one. Bullet number 1, 0. Bullet number 2, less than 1% of the previous year's budget. Example, less than $230,638 in FY '26. Bullet number 3, between 1% and 2% of the previous year's budget. Example, between $230,000 and $230,638 and $461,276 in FY '26. The fourth budget equal to 2% of the previous year's budget. Example, $461,276 in FY '26. And the fifth budget, more than 2% of the previous year's budget. Example, more than $461,276 in FY '26. All select board members in favor of this motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 4-0. Thank you. Now, what's left on our agenda? We need one more motion.
I'll motion a record-breaking time out of here. We should adjourn.
Okay, all in favor of adjournment?
Oh.
Aye. Thank you all very much.
It's like a bill.
Thank you very much. World's record. Now we got
Brattleboro, you're welcome.
one of those.
Always.
These two of those.
Forever.
We'll just have to find out, won't we?